And thank you so much, Constantine, for joining us. I'm honored to introduce Kosti Psimopoulos, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at the with the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard University, as well as the executive director of the Integrative Health, Religion, and Spirituality at Harvard Medical School. Um, Kosti is a kinesiologist by training and a bioethicist. He joined Harvard's faculty on the initiative of health, spirituality, and religion, of which he is also a senior program administrator and the Human Flourishing Program in 2024. He also holds an academic teaching position in the Department of Systems Biology at HMS, Scientific Citizenship Initiative funded by the NIH. Has another academic research appointment in the Global Health and Social Medicine and the Center for Bioethics at HMS. And finally, a third appointment as a course developer in a new joint HMS HSPS, which is the Harvard Medical School and Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health Initiative on Racism in Health and Scientific Research. So a very busy gentleman here, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us and address our group. Kosti, without further ado, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you all for having me. I hope everyone can hear and see me well. And I do have some slides that I would like to share as well. So let me make sure that you can all see those slides. And hopefully they're all, okay, so they're excellent. So thank you for this introduction. Thank you for having me here to represent our amazing program at Harvard called Human Flourishing. And I'm just going to say a few things about myself, go into the program at a glance overall, Human Flourishing, and then focus a little bit more with my bioethics hat as a bioethicist on the initiative on health, spirituality, and religion, which is what I'm directly involved with. And hopefully you will not mind my Greek accent throughout the presentation. So I'm originally from Greece, hence the very popular name Constantine, emperor, saint from Byzantine Empire. And although my grandfather emigrated to this country after the Second World War, and he settled in a small town called Weirton, West Virginia, right on the Ohio River. Anyone from any West Virginia folks or Ohio folks? I cannot see all of you, but if there are, I'm happy to see you. And so later on, my family, my father, mother, an older sister settled in Jersey City, New Jersey, where they spent about 2 decades of their adult lives. Any Jersey City folks, New Jersey, I'm happy to say hi to you too. But I have been living in Massachusetts, primarily in the Boston area, for almost the last 22 years and counting. I have a couple of other appointments, as you did mention, at Harvard. So the Harvard Medical School, which is the Department of Global Health and Social Medicine, and the Center for Bioethics falls under that department at the medical school. And then across campus, as you can see behind me, is Gordon Hall, which is the main part of Harvard Medical School. Everyone is invited to come, by the way. I look forward to seeing some of you in the future. The other department within the T.H. Chan School of Public Health is the Department of Epidemiology. And then I have a third appointment outside of Harvard as well, as a professor of ethics at our seminary, which is the Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, where they don't mind my Greek accent that much because it's a Hellenic college, Holy Cross. I'm happy and proud always to say that my identity as a Christian, as an Orthodox Christian, Greek Orthodox, as well as a Greek American, really informs how I see and do science and research and how I teach. And I've been teaching for many, many years in higher education. So since we're talking about your consortium here, which is the Integrative Health Policy Consortium, I wanted to start by something that is right on our website center, as you can see, which is essentially integrative. So we are integrative not a consortium, but a program where we really bring the humanities, the social sciences, and public health sciences, both quantitative and qualitative research methodologies and mixed methods, as we say, all together. So I think that's really, that's definitely relevant, I would imagine, for this group. So later on, after some introduction to the Human Flourishing Program, which is the overall program that we have, founded in 2016, I will also focus more on the initiative that is one of 4 initiatives under the Human Flourishing Program that actually preceded the Human Flourishing Program, founded in 2011. So I will start with the former and then focus more on the latter. And I think I have about 15 to 20 minutes, if that's correct. So please let me know if I'm running close to that. One of my big role models at Harvard, Paul Farmer, the late and great Paul Farmer. Some of you may have heard the name, especially from the world of public health, global health, health equity, but also medicine and anthropology. He was a medical anthropologist. He was the chair of our department at Harvard Medical School in the Global Health and Social Medicine. He was actually one of the co-founders of that, blending the two together. And he also founded the very well-known, amazing organization called Partners in Health, together with Jim Kim, who was later president of Dartmouth College and then president of the World Bank. So they did some amazing work. But his main central mission, which now is my adopted mission as an academic as well, somebody who is at the medical school and at the School of Public Health, is that the idea that some lives matter less is really the root of all that is wrong with the world. And I think throughout my presentation and uncovering what we do at the Human Flourishing Program, you will see how it becomes really relevant for both good science for health and medicine, but overall for both societal and individual human flourishing as a goal, as an end purpose, or telos, as we would say using the Greek. So what is human flourishing? My fellow countryman Aristotle, my friend Aristotle, as I usually like to say, we actually grew up very close to one another, literally. So about 40 kilometers, not even miles, away from where I was born in Thessaloniki, although I was born a US citizen, Aristotle, the famous philosopher, was born. So I think there is something in our common DNA that can be cherished here. So eudaimonia, human flourishing, is the state in which all aspects of an individual's life are good. And this is from my colleague and supervisor and friend Tyler Vanderveel's work on the promotion of human flourishing from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences from 2017. But this is really what we believe. And it's not just the individual, as I said, although the individual is working on his or her holistic aspects of life, but also the societal then flourishing and how these work with one another. How do we measure that? Well, we have developed 6 measures that are very specific and quantifiable, as you will see, or if you already know. So again, the blend of having social scientists, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, philosophers or humanists in the humanities, philosophers, ethicists like me, bioethicists, and then medical doctors, public health professionals, epidemiologists, and biostatisticians all coming together in an integrative fashion, can actually measure what it is that we call human flourishing. And we have a lot of data for that. I'm happy to go more into that in the Q&A if you wish. But to me, as a bioethicist, the most meaningful are those that have to do with meaning and purpose in life. So number 3, as well as character and virtue. and I will interject a little bit of how they are aligned with the bioethical principles, that are principles essentially of all health sciences, public health, and medicine. So one of the things that we have, which is the impact and essentially what each and every one of you, of us, of our fellow community members, be they scientists, again, practitioners, faculty members in academia, students, and just the average person, the average citizen, is that you can measure all of that and you can work towards improving your own human flourishing, or that sense of human flourishing. And I will show you the link later on of an app that we have created, and hopefully you can distribute widely across all your own respective entities. I know we have many associations, national entities represented. I wish we had the time to go over each one of you, because I really would like to meet you and hear from what you do and what your constituents need. But I did see the list, so I have a basic idea. And I think this can be meaningful to all of you. I'm not advertising a product here. I'm just giving you something tangible that is really based on rigorous data-driven research. And again, you can look at that more from the app or the link later on. But people who use the research essentially from the Human Flourishing Program can do a number of different exercises. And I know we have individuals who work with patients here, or who are leading institutions working with patients directly. So they can probably benefit with some of those that we have, exercises that is. And now going back to the domains of human flourishing, those are also the measures. We can look into how character and virtue, as well as meaning and purpose, that can affect the sense of flourishing, is actually something that Harvard would do. And it is actually, to me, as an alumnus of Harvard Medical School, and as someone who is teaching now at this institution, interacting with many of our students, I see that this is actually more and more relevant to those at the Harvard community, across the Harvard community, but of course at other institutions. So one of the things that is a very recent development, maybe it's of interest to you, is the Global Flourishing Study, together with the Gallup Foundation at Baylor University in Texas, mapping the mystery of humanity. How do people across the globe flourish, and what can we learn from that to apply in the United States context? And of course, the US is part of the study. But this is an unprecedented, longitudinal, rigorous research study involving 22 countries, over 200,000 individuals, and we're only going into phase 2 right now. And the first report is actually already available, so you can access that from our website going into the Global Flourishing Study. And I'll share the link again at the end. But what is coming up on April 30th in DC is going to be the first presentation and publication of the data together with Gallup. And this will later on go into Nature and Springer. And you will be able to see how all of those data are more relevant for what you do respectfully in your own consortium, and then into the independent and different entities that you represent. Now, for a second here, I want to go into what bioethics is and does very briefly, but so that I will give you a glimpse of how this is relevant to the work of human flourishing, and hopefully to the work to your own work, and how it can be meaningful as well. The Bible, in quotes, of bioethics is from Tom Beecham and Jim Childress. That was first published in 1979, when the field of bioethics was starting to flourish and to emerge in this country. And we have a set of 4 main principles that I hope and believe that they can also permeate many of the layers of the work that you do and you're interested in, especially from a health policy standpoint, but also from a practitioner's standpoint. So the respect for autonomy of the patient or the person in research or in clinical environments. Something that we call non-maleficence, from the Latin primum non nocere, which actually goes all the way back to my other fellow countryman, Hippocrates, as he's called in Greece, with first do no harm. So avoiding harm when you're trying to help someone in either medicine or health for their own human flourishing. And then linked with that is beneficence, the principle of trying to help, of doing something beneficent or good. And of course, the fourth one is justice, more broadly defined, however, with not only an interest and a focus on distributive justice, so across health populations or patient populations, but with a health equity and social justice focus in mind as well. Now, why are these relevant? Because every time we do research and every time we do research in a medical context or a public health context, we use data that are emerging from people, especially when we talk about empirical research studies. So we have to approach this with respect, not only with rigor and what we call reliability and validity in our way of conducting the science, but when we talk about human beings, otherwise known as human subjects, which is better as the human persons in research, this is very, very relevant. And we know as prima facie, as a duty that we have an obligation when we work with people for their health, that there are certain things to avoid, of course, that then have also a context in philosophy and theology and religion and other sciences, such as, do not cause pain or suffering. But in the process of trying to help people, we know from some of the egregious examples of research conduct in the past, both in the US and globally, that sometimes this wasn't the case. So we have to learn by that. And we do this primarily in bioethics. Beneficence as a principle has some obligations. I want to remind you the Good Samaritan law, which I'm sure you all know or are familiar with. And then Peter Singer's work on effective altruism. So how can you do the most you can do to help others, right? Those are implicit usually in medicine and healthcare. And then we have this notion of justice that is then applied into a flourishing life. Nobel laureate Amartya Sen's research, essentially, and his student at Harvard, Martha Nussbaum, the famous Nussbaum at Chicago. And that in a nutshell is to each person the means necessary to exercise the capabilities essential for a flourishing life. So notions such as this, with the 4 bioethics principles, are inherent and embedded in all of this integrative research that we have from across the humanities, medical sciences in the Human Flourishing Program. And that's why I wanted to just give you a glimpse of what it is that we do in the bioethics world or biomedical ethics. Now, this is a word cloud that we did with some of our students in bioethics at the medical school who come from all kinds of different fields, including nursing. I know we have many people representing nurses across the US here, including those who work in other contexts that might include acupuncture. I know we have that, yoga and group exercise. I actually used to run both Harvard's and MIT's recreation and fitness centers, respectively. And I was the one who would hire those who would then do group exercise, including yoga, Pilates, and all kinds of other physical activity courses. So you can see some of the themes here that are really relevant for bioethics, the study of bioethics, but I'm sure are relevant again and significant in your respective areas. And we can talk about that towards the end. But going now into the theological or more religious area that informs bioethics it comes down to respecting the dignity of all persons and looking at the human life with holy awe, as Paul Ramsey, famous ethicist, philosopher, and bioethicist, one of the first bioethicists, would refer to that. Not only respecting the autonomy, but seeing the patient as person. The famous philosopher Immanuel Kant would call this a categorical imperative to actually do good for the human dignity of the human person. And James Gustafson would refer to that as an obligation to see ourselves making the transcendence between what a human being is to what being human ought to be, from Yale Divinity School. And so with that, I'm going to now come into the specific initiative that actually blends spirituality and religion, sometimes used interchangeably, but other times are a little bit separate. We can also talk about that if you wish, but then how that informs health. So that is an initiative that was founded back in 2011, which then the research grew and informed what is now the Human Flourishing Program. And it is an inter-faculty initiative across Harvard University from the three schools, the Divinity School, the Harvard Medical School, and the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. It aims to be a research catalyst for, again, an integrated model, and this is already on our website, I didn't just put it there today, of spirituality, public health, and patient care, one that fosters collaboration across our institution, but also dialogue with spiritual communities. And the compelling reason why we needed such an initiative, which otherwise people would never think that spirituality could be science or could be meaningful for an institution which is otherwise secular like Harvard, is that in light of the separation between body and soul within contemporary healthcare, the initiative upholds stringent scientific and social scientific methods of analysis, followed by interdisciplinary teams of empirical researchers, scholars, theologians, based within a line of inquiry that seeks to find understanding of spirit, mind, and body, which for me as a kinesiologist, someone who started from sport medicine, and myself in the past a competitive Olympic level endurance athlete, it is really, really meaningful to see this integration in many other contexts, not just in one area, which I'm hopeful, and this is the case for many of you. The basic question we're trying to answer, and I will wrap up in just a few minutes, I know I'm close to time, is how may religion and spirituality, in concert with public health and the practice of medicine, alleviate illness and promote human well-being or human flourishing, as I described. We have a lot of great new research that came out within the last year, and those are some of the headlines and how the media outlets has presented our research that focus primarily on not only the social determinants of health, which I'm sure many of you know, but specifically something that is missing from, or was missing from the literature, which is the spiritual determinant of health. And again, we have a lot of data for that from thousands of studies, especially in what we call meta-analysis with a significant effect size. I have another slide here for some more research that I wanted to highlight from our initiative again, including mental health, and showing that patients, even in serious illness, a study from JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, led by Tracy Balboni, one of my colleagues. I will show you in a minute a picture of all our 7 faculty members, indicated that those, either the physicians, the clinicians, or those patients and their families' own spirituality can actually indeed demonstrate that there is better coping with serious illness specifically, which is something that is huge. It's otherwise as a drug in itself, as medicine in itself, or it serves again as a catalyst for whatever other treatment is happening. Just to move on, so this is our team. I'm very proud and of course humble to be with some amazing individuals, including the former Assistant Secretary of Health for the United States, Health and Human Services, Howard Koh. But of course, Tyler Vanderbilt, Tracy that I mentioned, Professor of Radiation Oncology, her husband, a theologian, Michael Balboni, David Rosmarin, who also, and some of those people represent different faith traditions as well. So David from the Jewish tradition. And then we have the Assistant Dean of Ministry from Harvard Divinity School, Laura, myself, and then Kate Long are the main faculty members. So it is really a synergistic, research-focused relationship that led to this creation. Originally was Tyler, Tracy, and Michael. And there was a need and a void that they uncovered again, not discovered, but uncovered at Harvard specifically, but something that is now modeled and replicated across the United States with individuals that have centers or initiatives like this, such as Duke and the University of Chicago and Baylor, among others. Again, going back to the need, I have highlighted a few things. So there has been a gap, a sizable gap between what patients want and need in the realms of religion and spirituality, because we have a lot of data indicating that we do have a majority of the population in the United States who are actually spiritual and or religious. So this has marginalized the religion from the domain of public health policy and usually has had a tendency to ignore the central role that spirituality holds within the experience of physical suffering and more specifically now, terminal illness, which is a big emphasis of some of our research. So if we neglect as a society, research community, and otherwise policy in health policy, a fundamental dimension of human experience, then this results in a cascading impact on public health policy, on the patient's own well-being, medical decisions, and the healthcare system. So this actually goes back to what we see our mission being as a beneficent mission, a non-maleficent mission to avoid harm, trying to do good, but also maintaining a balance, from a justice perspective, with again respect to the human dignity of the person. So the impact, I showed you some of the research and how it has been displayed in the media, has been really significant. So working on contemporary problems, wanting to be inherently practical to advance testable solutions that both benefit society in alleviating illness and promoting, of course, health and well-being. According to the WHO 1946 definition, it is not just, right, the absence of disease or infirmity, what it means to have health, but the complete status of physical, mental, and social, and now we would add spiritual well-being. So it is social, scientific, medical research that holds the potential really to, on the intellectual capital provided by many other disciplines, again, hence the integrative emphasis, by providing empirical descriptions of contemporary issues. So more on the integration, and I think just a couple more slides, to normalize the academic pursuit of this understanding within the realms of our field, greater field of health, public health, medicine, but also that of theology in our focus for the initiative, to then become the gold standard of ongoing research and education. Also to bring attention to patient spiritual needs within the medical context by providing a strong evidence base for spiritual care and integrating medical professional training. And I know professional development is significant in many of your respective fields and constituents training, involving spiritual care as an essential component of healthcare. So we have a challenge and an opportunity here, and this is the last slide for the initiative. Some people across academia, across sciences, and medicine, but of course, government included, remain deeply skeptical that religion is being advanced under the guise of science, right? Others are concerned that religion is being co-opted by a scientific hegemony. So the study of religion and spirituality and health is fraught, and here is the bioethicist in me, with major ethical concerns, but also practical concerns that unfortunately have yet to garner significant scholarly reflection and writing, and this is what we're remedying in a sense. But we believe with my colleagues that if the silos are broken, then major discoveries for human flourishing really await. So with that, I will just close by showing you the link, and I'm happy to share that again if you like, but it's just flourishing.app. And you can look it up under our Human Flourishing website, and those 6 different measures that you can use and your constituents can use. And I will just end with that. I can stop sharing so that I can see more of you, and happy to answer any questions.
This is Margaret, and I want to say that was a fabulous, fabulous presentation. I work with the American Holistic Nurses Credentialing Corporation, so we have always believed that people are greater than the sum of the parts, and it is a spiritual mind, body, emotion integration. I only have one comment. I look forward to going back and listening to you again. And I am excited to be able to utilize some of your resources. And that comment is, first of all, I think the program is phenomenal. I have done some of the webinars. I'm aware of what you offer, and thank you for being out there. My one comment is that as a nurse, I don't practice medicine. So I hear medicine, medical decisions, medical. But really, what the Human Flourishing Project does is flourish the holistic being. And we are healthcare providers here. Many different disciplines, different organizations, as you know, that's who makes up IHPC. I would welcome you to consider down the line using language that is more inclusive. That includes all of us. We're more than just the disciplines. We're all parts of that bicycle wheel. And so thank you for your time and your expertise and a great presentation.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to say, I definitely hear you. I wanted to present what our focus is, but then definitely the application. And actually within our research, we use something that is very well known, one of the biggest data sets from the nurses' health study itself. So I always try to refer, and I'm sorry if I didn't do that explicitly here, but I always try to refer to holistically all healthcare professions. And sometimes that's the reason why within bioethics even I use clinicians and their teams that include many of the nurses instead of the medical team. But in terms of the initiative itself, that's something that we have specifically as our focus being, and given that it is in the medical school, the School of Public Health, but definitely hear you, and thank you for that. Yeah.
Christine, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can I call you Dr. Kosti? Because I don't think I can pronounce your last name.
Absolutely, or just Kosti, or Constantine is fine.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation, and it's a topic that I've been interested in for many, many years. So we're a policy consortium, and I'm aware of, for example, Corey Key's work at Emory University and how he was able to take that work on, well, I think he called it thriving, but very similar work, and then take that work, and it has been used by the state of Manitoba to create spiritual health advisors. So how does what you're doing translate into policy for what we're doing here in the United States? Like we've got a new administration, we're in a time of great flux, and what do you see being able to actually be actionable changes that we can make based on this incredible data?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christine, for this question. And of course, it is very timely and relevant. Just to give you a little bit of context for my own journey with regard to Capitol Hill and US Congress, I've been engaged with advocacy efforts from one of my own formerly Maine national entities that I have been associated with, that was called Shape America, for health education. So for almost 16 years, starting in 2008, I have been going every year to meet with elected officials on Capitol Hill. I'm sure many of you have had these experiences with government affairs from your own associations. But what I have seen is that unless we actually take the research, like literally take it, walking into the elected officials' offices, both in Congress and the Senate, and more specifically, sometimes not just leave it on the desk of the elected official, but have meaningful conversations and follow-ups with the staffers, the teams, who are usually the ones who will actually remind their boss, the senator or the congressman or woman, as they're actually walking to a very significant vote that has to do with health. In my context, it was health education specifically. They're going to be the most critical people, the staffers. Sometimes they're much, much younger than most of us, right? And even, younger than most of my students, fresh out of college or doing internships, newly hired. And those are the same people that are now coming into the new administration. Then the legislators are not going to just get one of those journals that I mentioned, or get some of that research, or seek it out on their own. So I think one tangible thing that we can do to affect health policy is to actually, and I'm sure, again, this, I might be preaching to the choir here, but to actually make every and any effort to have these personal relationships with people who are either elected officials themselves or in the executive branch. And I will give you an example of my approach and our program's approach with the White House, this White House specifically, but also making sure that we and including all of us, all of you, academics and practitioners and executives alike, and CEOs, are on the tables and part of the agendas where health policy is being discussed, if not just formed and potentially considered. So I think those are some of the things that I think can be done to actually showcase the research that it actually works, but it has to come from the constituencies, the constituents themselves, right? They are not going to just hear some scholar from Harvard or any of the universities that might be doing this great cutting-edge research. What we do for this administration specifically, we approach something that could otherwise be seen as a challenging situation, with an open mind and being as optimistic as we can, cultivating some individual relationships. So I mentioned that if you haven't been able to tell by my accent, that I'm a Greek American and a Greek Orthodox. And so one of the things that I tried and have started doing is to develop a close relationship with the head now of the White House Office on Science and Technology, which happens to be a fellow Greek American. His actual confirmation hearing, I was watching right before I came to your presentation, to the consortium today for my presentation. His name is Michael Kratsios, and he is actually going to be heading this office, the OSTP, which is, as some of you might know, very significant for at least the science policy part, not necessarily the technology, although I have some comments on that as well. But this is something that I personally, met. As somebody that I personally met, I wanted to express my willingness to help educate him and his staff, as well as, overall the White House, on what human flourishing specifically is, as, real science, not just, technology or engineering, but human flourishing that brings all of those scientific fields together, the humanities, social sciences alike. And we have a program on AI and human flourishing, which was actually mentioned as part of the new administration's policy priorities. I'm sure you have seen that one of the executive orders, it was actually from January 23, that specifically mentions human flourishing as it relates to AI policy. So this is where we can probably and hopefully make a contribution, even in an environment overall that might be seen by some as not, let's say, the one that would be the one that it continues, let's say, to put it again in an optimistic manner, to continue some of the advances that we have seen specifically with regard to health policy. So that's what I can tell you more, but that's what we and I have started to do. And I think that if we emphasize the human connection, this is when we can not only meet across the aisle, as we say, or resist this polarizing that exists in our country, but we can actually make some steps forward when we focus on the human relationship, and then have a trusting relationship where people should be trusting science. But if they cannot trust science, at least they can trust a scientist who is a human person, and then the science as a result. I don't know if I answered the question, but these are some of the things that come to mind.
Thank you. I believe Elaine had her hand up.
Thank you. Really appreciate the presentation, and also came in late, so I look forward to the recording. I am situated in Eugene, Oregon at an organization called the Trauma Healing Project. We are very local. We bring together practitioner education really around increasing the effectiveness of working with trauma-impacted individuals and communities. And we also mix in the direct provision and education of practitioners that provide conventional, integrative, traditional, and complementary care at a very local level. And my question is, how can we decentralize participation in both the application of these principles in our local area, and also participate in the project of this knowledge co-creation around integrating this mind, body, spirit? In other words, how can we be engaged in this work with you as not federally funded or not federally engaged practitioners, providers, educators? Really specifically, how, that focus, how can we bring the local to the national or the global, and vice versa?
Thank you so much, Elaine. And actually, I wanted to somehow virtually send some of my regards to my distant relatives in Eugene, Oregon, that I do have from the Voutsakakis family. But yeah, so those are some of the descendants of my grandfather's wider extended family who emigrated to this country, first in the eastern coast and then spread all the way up to Eugene, Oregon. So I'm happy that you're from that region. And so I wanted to say that we, in terms of some of the specific initiatives within the Human Flourishing Program, are actually trying to engage with different contexts, different regions, as well as different representatives of communities that are invested in exactly what you're doing, what you mentioned. We have had the National World Congress on Moral Injury, that of course we talked about trauma a lot from that perspective, moral injury and mental health, and also some of the unfortunate, if not devastating, harms that have been perpetuated sometimes by the very own institutions that I have mentioned, right? So we had this World Congress on Moral Injury and Moral and Trauma. And we had some individuals like the famous author of The Care of the Soul, Dr. Thomas Moore. So, and others, of course, Deepak Chopra, you know, some of the other very famous people around spirituality and health. So we're happy to work with either states. We have an ongoing relationship now with the Commissioner of Health from the state of Tennessee, for example. So we are happy to work with states or other, some of your own associations into either collecting data as part of, for example, we have a study happening right now from California that will be including Oregon and the state of Washington for the flourishing and the church and religious communities, where we want to collect data from across the different specifically Christian denominations, but across the different religious communities into how this helps their own flourishing. So this is an open invitation, essentially, especially for organized groups that are across the different areas of interest. So religion, spirituality, and health, public health entities, local, state, or regional levels, but also other institutions that would like to engage in our research. So if you have a local university, college, or some of your institutions represented within the consortium, we would be happy to extend an invitation to collaborate. One of my own missions as a Harvard person is to demythologize the fact that this is only the ivory tower and the Ivy League institution that is arrogant or is exclusive, right? So I want to change that, hopefully, especially for the perception of communities within the US. So there you go. There you have it.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You know, it is tricky to participate when you are not part of a larger coalition and you're outside the conventional healthcare or institutional settings. We have a lot of tribal work happening that are disconnected from, we also have a lot of, you may know that Oregon is home to legalized psilocybin therapy. And so there's some interesting crossover with that as well. So I will pursue this further offline. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, and thank you for mentioning the psilocybin. There is so much research. I was just last week at the national event at the Harvard Law School and the Harvard Divinity School, where we had a number of different experts on psychedelics, and this is called the PULSE. It's an acronym, PULSE Conference. You can look it up. But yes, this is a big part of what we also monitor with my colleagues in bioethics.
Very, very good. Excellent discussion and presentation again. We really appreciate you joining us and being a part of our meeting today. And on behalf of the group, I really thank you for the incredible work and the sharing. And I think a lot of it hit very close to home for many of us.
I'm very happy to hear that, and you know, hopefully again that was meaningful for most people here, and I'm very happy for the invitation on behalf of the Human Flourishing at Harvard. All the best to each of you, and maybe I'll see you again.
Absolutely, and yes, thank you very much. And then when we clip your presentation, Michael will let you know so you can find it where we post it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.